Before the dinosaurs, before the first mammals, long before the continents took the shape we know today, there was a world that feels more alien than any science fiction. A world lost to deep time. 300 million years ago, the air was thick, heavy, and rich with oxygen. So rich that fire, once sparked, burned with a terrifying intensity. So rich that it allowed life to experiment with size in ways that now seem impossible. This was not our world. It was theirs. The sky was not ruled by birds, but by giants. Dragonflies, the meganeura, with wingspans the size of an eagle. They hunted through forests of colossal trees that scraped a sky of bronze and gray. The forest floor was not the domain of mammals. It belonged to other titans. Millipedes, the Arthropleura, 2 meters long, armored and silent, crawling through the damp undergrowth. Giant amphibians with labyrinthine teeth lurked in the swamps. This was the Carboniferous Period, a planet teeming with life. A hot, humid global greenhouse, a world of spectacular, monstrous growth. But in this vibrant, supercharged world, something was profoundly wrong. A fundamental rule of nature had been broken. Death had lost its meaning. When the giant trees of the Carboniferous fell, they did not rot. They did not decay. They simply piled up, one on top of the other, for millions of years, forming colossal graveyards of wood that stretched across continents. Because 300 million years ago, something ancient awakened, and its ghost is the very engine of our modern world. The planet of giants. To understand this paradox, we must first understand the air they breathed. Today, oxygen makes up about 21% of our atmosphere. In the Carboniferous, it soared to 35%. This oxygen-rich atmosphere was like a performance-enhancing drug for life. Insects don't have lungs like we do. They breathe through tiny tubes in their bodies called trachea. The amount of oxygen in the air directly limits how large they can grow. With 35% oxygen, that limit was shattered. The world's invertebrates became giants. It was an evolutionary arms race fueled by air itself. But the true giants of this era were not the animals. They were the plants. The great scale trees, Lepidodendron, towering 40 meters into the sky. They formed the first great global forests, a single planet-spanning swamp. And they had just invented a biological superpower, a molecule that would change the world forever, a molecule called lignin. The great innovation, lignin is what makes wood wood. It's a complex, rigid polymer that binds cellulose fibers together. It allowed trees to grow tall, strong, and upright for the first time. It was one of the greatest innovations in the history of life, a staggering success. But it had one catastrophic flaw, a flaw that would bring the entire planet to a standstill. Nature had invented wood, but it had not yet invented a way to uninvent it. Today, when a tree falls, an army of decomposers gets to work. Bacteria, fungi, termites. They have evolved enzymes to break down the tough lignin. It is the great cycle of life and death. But 300 million years ago, that army did not exist. The white rot fungi that specialize in eating lignin had not yet evolved. For 60 million years, an entire geological period, the planet was covered in wood that nothing could eat. The world that held its breath. Imagine the scene. A colossal tree, centuries old, falls in a storm. And it just lies there, decade after decade, century after century. Another tree falls on top of it, and another, and another. The carbon that the tree had pulled from the atmosphere was now trapped, locked away from the carbon cycle. This happened on a global scale. The Earth was slowly suffocating on its own success. The dead trees piled up into deposits hundreds of feet thick. And as these layers were buried deeper, the immense pressure and heat of the Earth began to work their magic, transforming this ancient immortal wood into something else, something black, brittle, and rich with energy. Coal. The next time you see a piece of coal, hold it in your hand. Feel its weight, its strange, dusty texture. You are not just holding a rock, you are holding a fossilized forest. You are holding 300 million-year-old sunlight trapped in stone. And when we burn it, we are not just releasing energy, we are burning the bones of ancient trees. We are listening to the whispers of a world that died before the first dinosaur ever walked the Earth. A world that should have stayed silent. The end of an era. So what stopped it? Why isn't the planet still covered in immortal wood? Because evolution eventually finds a way. Towards the end of the Permian period, a new life form learned a new trick. The fungi, a group of fungi, now known as white rot fungi, evolved the specific enzymes needed to break down lignin. For the first time in 60 million years, the code had been cracked. Wood was no longer immortal. Death was back in business. The great cycle of decay and renewal was restored. The era of colossal coal formation came to an end. The story should have ended there. The ancient carbon, locked safely away deep underground, but a ghost remained, waiting for 300 million years until a new species appeared, a species that would find this buried treasure and reawaken the ancient fire. The reawakening that species is us. We are the ones who became geological time travelers. We drilled and dug into the deep past. We found the graveyards of the Carboniferous, and we put a match to them. The Industrial Revolution was not just an invention of new machines. It was the moment humanity resurrected the Carboniferous atmosphere. The something ancient that awakened 300 million years ago was the forest superorganism. But the true awakening is happening now. We are the ones reawakening that ancient world. We are taking 60 million years of stored carbon and releasing it back into the sky in the geological blink of an eye. A few hundred years. We are in effect reversing the process. We are completing a cycle that was paused for 300 million years. We are recreating the conditions of a deep past our biology was never designed for. The Carboniferous was an alien world, born from a planetary imbalance. An innovation would without a corresponding solution decay. Now we have created our own imbalance. An innovation industrial energy without, as yet, a corresponding solution for its consequences. The story of the Carboniferous is a profound planetary scale lesson. It teaches us that nature abhors an imbalance, and it leaves us with a haunting, open-ended question. The Carboniferous era ended when a humble fungus evolved a new way to eat. It saved the planet by learning to consume the past. How will our own carbon-fueled era end? What new process or what new intelligence will finally learn to consume the waste of our own success? And are we the fungus? Or are we the immortal, unrotting trees destined to be buried by our own achievements? Subscribe to Epoch Echoes, where the past is never truly dead.